making a mistake thinking that I'm just gonna be some grateful kid who'll bend the knee to an old timer.
Don't look at what's in front of you.
Ooh, welcome. Allow me to adjust your gravity.
I'm fine.
Gravity on.
Hello and welcome to this week's cinema show here on Arts 24, where I'm joined by our film critic, Emma Jones. Hi, Emma.
Hello.
We're starting off with a rush of speed thanks to F1, the movie, directed by Top Gun Mavericks Joseph Kosinski, produced by Jerry Bruckheimer, and of course, starring Brad Pitt as a racing driver. Now, Emma, we know that the big screen loves cars. We've had movies like Rush, Ford versus Ferrari, even the Pixar classic, Cars.
Who could forget that?
So what sets F1 apart?
Well, certainly not the storyline, I'm afraid,
Okay.
which is the classic underdog getting a second chance at glory in the person of Brad Pitt's character, Sonny. Now, he plays a guy who is living in his van after he had a near-fatal accident as a young F1 driver. But the sharp-suited Ruben, played by Javier Bardem, who owns a failing racing company, tracks him down and asks him to be one of his drivers for the upcoming Formula One season. Now, his co-driver, Joshua, who's played by young British actor Damson Idris, is outraged at the idea that this old dog Sonny can teach him some new tricks.
Oh, a bit of ageism there. Well, let's see what we can expect with F1.
Doesn't take orders, goes his own way, huh? A lone wolf. Well, I've news for you. Formula One is a team sport. It always was. Listen, let's get this straight. We all lose our jobs if you can't pull off a miracle.
No pressure. None.
So the film really gives you the feeling of being in the cars, being at the Grand Prix. And I suppose that makes sense because it was made in collaboration with Formula One.
Yes, they really bent over backwards to accommodate the production team. And if it looks real, that's because it is real. It was filmed at Grand Prix all around the world. And they had access to the winners' podiums, to the paddock. And they even had their own garage at these events, I believe. 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton is a producer and a special advisor on the film. And you'll also catch glimpses of other Formula One stars throughout the movie, including Fernando Alonso and Max Verstappen. The movie also gives a glimpse of the commerciality of this world, because honestly, I've never seen so much branding in one movie.
Plenty of product placement. The sponsors are there front and centre. But the big question is, did Brad Pitt do his own driving?
Well, he did, apparently, and even Lewis Hamilton has lavish praise on his skills.
Not just a pretty face, then. Well, the F1 premieres have been lavish events. Brad Pitt's friend Tom Cruise turned up to the London premiere, and for the world premiere, they took over New York's Times Square. Let's hear a bit more about that daredevil driving from the talent.
What we're doing, you know, in the car, it's very controlled. It's really a peaceful feeling in a strange way. Yeah, you just feel this immediate presence because you just got to focus, focus, focus. And when you hit it right, it just feels so sublime.
He and Damson are fearless. They go. One day, I remember in Silverstone, I said, "Where is Brad?" And they told me, "There." I said, "That was Brad."
You know, Olivia, this film is an incredible spectacle, even if, like me, you wouldn't ever choose to watch Formula One in real life. And I think the combination of the director and his Top Gun Maverick cinematographer, Claudio Miranda, you know, they really endeavoured, I suppose, to give audiences the same immersive experience, this time in cars instead of planes. I think it really succeeds. It should be seen on the big screen, definitely. But just be warned, this story has no surprises.
OK, it's more about the thrilling experience. Well, now on to a very different film, Once Upon a Time in Gaza, by directors Arab and Tarzan Nasrad. This is a movie that won the Palestinian brothers the award at Cannes for Best Directors in the Un Certain Regard section. And they weren't actually able to make this film in Gaza, is that right?
No, for obvious reasons. And the Nasser brothers actually made this film in Jordan. Now, their last movie, Gaza Mon Amour, was a charming middle-aged love story. And Once Upon a Time in In Gaza, though, that's a different genre mix altogether. That's Western, it's thriller, it's very dark comedy, and it stars Majd Aid as Osama. Now, he's a charismatic falafel shop owner, and he dabbles in the trade of illegal prescription drugs as well, with the help of his timid helper Yahya. But when a corrupt cop wants in on some of the action, violence is almost certainly going to follow. But later, when Yahya gets unexpectedly cast in Gaza's first ever fictitious action film, The Rebel, he might get a chance at revenge.
Okay, well, let's take a look at Once Upon a Time in Gaza.
فكر الدنيا على قد بس الفيلم يكون أول فيلم سينما أكشن في غزة كلياتها. بدي إياك تلعب دور البطولة.
طلع وين ما بدي.
يعني هالحين نقدر نقول إنه عندنا هوليوود؟
يعني بنقدر نقول إنه عندنا غزاوود.
So that title, Once Upon a Time, it's a bit reminiscent of a fairy tale. I suppose that's a reference to a time in Gaza that no longer exists because of the current war.
It definitely feels like a fable of a lost city where some semblance of normal life was possible. And the film is set in the noughties. That's just after Hamas had come into power and Israel had begun its blockade. Now, the film Yahya is cast in is propaganda, essentially, about the glories of armed resistance. But I think that the Nasser brothers are really making the point that cinema in itself can be a political statement and an act of political resistance. I would say the current circumstances of Gaza gives the film a lot of emotion, but the story to me felt curiously flat unless the big-hearted character of Osama was actually on screen.
And like you say, making films for Palestinians, definitely an act of resistance. The Nasser brothers have been showing that. Well, now onto a film that was released last week here in France. It's still one of the summer's most talked about movies. It comes from British director Danny Boyle's 28 years later, starring Aaron Taylor-Johnson, Jodie Comer and Ralph Fiennes, royalty in British film industry. It's not Boyle's first go at a horror movie, is it?
Well, it's not. If you remember the early noughties film 28 Days Later, also directed by Danny Boyle, written by Alex Garland, as this film is, and that was starring Cillian Murphy, you'll know that it became a zombie classic. And it was actually one of the first films to use that guerrilla-style filmmaking, you know, with the then very new digital cameras.
Indeed. Well, I'm keen to see what the new film has in store for us. Let's take a look.
Right, sit here. Sit. Auntie, what's going on? Jimmy, sit still, keep quiet, and do not move from this spot.
Seven, 6, 11, 5, 9 and 20 miles today. 7, 6, 11, 5.
Okay, looks suitably horrifying. Emma, what did you think of this one?
Right, yes, stay with me because I think this movie as a whole is bold and beautiful and there's extraordinary performances in it, particularly someone you didn't see in that clip there, but it's Alfie Williams who plays 12-year-old Spike, the film's hero. I think Boyle has always managed to maybe capture the culture of a decade, if you think of Trainspotting in the 1990s.
Absolutely.
And I think with this Britain, you know, some have taken it as a metaphor of sorts for Brexit or even, you know, what happened during COVID, because the rage virus has isolated Britain. It's quarantined off the coast of Europe. And a group of survivors are, you know, re-evoking the Battle of Agincourt spirit by taking up archery lessons to kill off the infected, otherwise zombies. And it's into this story that Spike, you know, goes on his journey to adulthood. It's really a coming-of-age story. And I'd say this is as good as the horror genre should be, as Danny Boyle said recently at the world premiere of the film.
I think horror is a really interesting genre. You can read all sorts of events through it without it being directly about Brexit or COVID or the way we, what's going on in Gaza, or what's going on with migration and the way people are treated. You read all these different transparencies through it. And yet it's not about that. It's about this family and the horrors that they face 28 years after the original infection.
So 28 years later, made $60 million worldwide at the box office in the first few days of release. I think we can call it a hit.
Yes, I would say that looks pretty promising. Now, Danny Boyle will be hoping for more, of course, in subsequent weeks, because 28 years later is not so much a sequel in his imagination as the first film in a new trilogy. So American director Nia DaCosta has directed a second film called The Bone Temple. That's out in 2026. And Boyle hopes to direct a third film himself, but it depends how well this one does at the box office. So I personally really hope to see more. I'd say this film has all the dystopian thrill of, say, 2008's A Quiet Place, and it's also got a particularly British sensibility.
I'll have to check it out. Well, finally, to an original Pixar animation now, Elio, which has disappointed slightly at the box office in its first week. It only made $35 million. That's light years away from the profits of an animation like Inside Out 2, which broke plenty of records. How good is this film, Emma?
Yeah, this is as smart a film as you'd hope that Pixar would make. And I'd say that now the live action versions of Lilo and Stitch and also How to Train Your Dragon are drawing audiences. But, there's a long summer holidays ahead and plenty of time to catch Elio in cinemas if you want to. Now, the film is directed by Domi Shi and Madeline Sharafian, and it's all about belonging, parenting and friendship. So Elio is a recently orphaned boy who goes to live with his aunt Olga, voiced by Zoe Saldana, and she had dreams of becoming an astronaut, and Elio too has dreams of finding another world because he feels he might fit in there better. And any prizes for guessing what is actually going to happen in this story. Soon Elio has an intergalactic incident on his hands because of his new friendship with Glorden. And can I say that larval insects, who apparently inspired the character of Glorden, I've never seen quite so cute and cuddly.
That is definitely a surprise. It sounds like heartwarming fun. Thank you very much for that roundup this week, Emma. We'll leave you with a clip of that state-of-the-art intergalactic animation from Pixar. Do check in with us next time here on Arts 24 for more movies, music, arts and culture. There's more news coming up just after this.
Elio, skipping school. I don't know if this is boundary testing or sleep regression or... Which one of these is you?
I don't know, but I think that one is you.
You need to make friends. I went here too when I was a kid.
Oh, welcome. Allow me to adjust your gravity.
I'm fine.
Gravity on. Can I trouble you for a DNA sample?
Sure. Where do you want it?
Ew!